Let's take a closer look at the stories and people shaping our nation right here on Zoom In. I'm Menchu, Macapagal.
We have taken road safety for granted, and that needs to change.
EDSA, arguably Metro Manila's most congested strip, is set for a massive makeover under an ambitious road project. It aims to make travel safer and smoother. But for now, the road ahead means further delays for millions.
Ang pag-rebuild ng EDSA ay hindi solusyon sa traffic.
One man asks Filipinos to give it a chance as he navigates through an infrastructure legacy left behind by rapid development coupled with a population boom.
With us here in the studio, Transportation Secretary Vince Dizon, who led an agency that oversees the development of former military bases into economic hubs and was a key figure in the previous administration's Build, Build, Build initiative. So welcome to the program, Sec.
Thank you, Menchu. Thank you for having me.
3 months into your role, natutulog ka pa ba, sir?
Oo naman.
Paminsan-minsan?
Paminsan-minsan. Oo. Pero it's been a long 3 months.
It's been a demanding role for you. But I know
very.
that nilakad mo recently yung EDSA, di ba? From Ayala to
Yes.
Shaw with the
Opo.
Move as One
Opo.
coalition.
Opo.
That cannot have been easy. How was the experience for you?
It was very eye-opening, to say the least. No? And doon ko na-realize na delikado talagang maglakad sa EDSA. No? And the reality is thousands of our kababayans do it every day.
That's right.
Menchu. No? So and I think it's really it really puts to fore what the president has repeatedly said, that we have to build better more.
Yeah.
We have to build better and build more. And I think this is why this project, the EDSA Rebuild, is so important.
Yeah, but you did this way after the plans for the EDSA Rebuild were completed, di ba? So if you're going to compare the plans that you've seen for the rebuild to your experience as a commuter, as a pedestrian along EDSA, how do you think that those plans actually meet the needs of the people?
That's a very good question, Menchu. And you're right. But I'm not quite sure if the plans are already set. No? So I think that's a good thing, because I think us in government, especially those in charge of infrastructure, really have to have a slight, adjustment in mindset.
Okay.
That when we build roads, when we build facilities, we really have to put people first. And we've seen this all over the world, that in the past, the tendency of governments, of people in charge of infrastructure were to put cars first. And I think that was a mistake.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of countries have learned from that mistake. You look at new developments in the US, new developments in Europe, a lot of the developments here in Asia alone really put people first. And that means public transportation, mass transport, and that means pedestrians.
That's right.
And I think that was why my experience last Monday, walking on EDSA, serves as an eye-opener, but also serves as a strong message that we have to really rethink the way we build our roads, the way we redesign our roads. And we really have to put commuters and pedestrians
Above.
at the top of the food chain,
Okay.
so to speak. no?
Okay, so you're saying that it's going to be pedestrian friendly, but
That's in fact what the president said.
okay,
That-
but how exactly are you going to do that, Sec, when since naglakad ka naman doon, makikita mo, ang daming it would be accessible via wheelchair, PWD, and even people with strollers, right? That's what it would mean. But how would you be able to do that since ang daming poste na nakaharang, you're walking and then may poste.
Yeah. There's
Or
only one way.
Sobrang kitid nung
Correct.
sidewalk because
Wala
may
nang sidewalk
poste.
minsan. Wala nang
Oo.
sidewalk.
Or there's a big wall of a subdivision or something.
That's correct.
So does that mean that you will be moving electrical lines underground,
Okay.
road
That's
widening?
That's a great question. First of all, it's going to be very difficult to move electrical lines underground because that's going to be so expensive.
Okay.
It's just so expensive. So there's only one way. The way is to take a little bit of the road that's for cars right now and for motorcycles, and reserve that for pedestrians and maybe even bicycles later on. So the key is to widen the outermost lane, because right now there are parts, in fairness, there are parts that are quite wide.
Yes.
May mga parts doon napansin ko, and I was doing my usual, I would measure using my steps. No? 1 step, 1 meter approximately per step, right? And there were actually some parts where it's like 2 meters, a little over 2 meters, and that's not bad. But I think the key is to make it consistent.
Yeah.
Kasi hindi consistent eh.
Correct.
Tama ka, minsan malapad, kikitid, tapos minsan mawawala.
And then it falls into nothing.
Mawawala na.
Yeah.
Oo. So I think the key now, and I think this is already what DPWH will be doing, because the President and the Office of the President already gave very clear instructions that, hey, we have to make the pedestrians, we have to give space for the pedestrians, and we have to make the space consistent. So
Yeah.
I think that's already part of the plan.
Okay.
So and that's a big step. So pardon the no pun intended, no, but it's a big step for our pedestrians and our communities.
That's right. Well, one of the things that we know about EDSA is ang daming utilities na nasa ilalim noon. We have the
Yes.
water supply, we have
Telecommunications,
internet. Exactly.
yes.
So when you're doing the EDSA rebuild, how are you ensuring na walang magiging service interruptions?
Yeah.
Or should people prepare?
I think
for
DPWH
interruptions.
has already factored all of that
Okay.
in. But one major part of the rebuild of EDSA is the drainage system.
Yes,
Kasi bahain na ang EDSA ngayon eh.
that's right.
And bahain siya dahil ang drainage system natin, ang tagal nang hindi napalitan yan. And with population growth, obviously, you've got clogged drainages left and right because of all the basura. You need to replace that.
Yeah.
You have to make it bigger.
Bigger.
You need to rehabilitate that entire system underground. But that is part of the plan, and I think they've factored all of those in. So I don't think there will be interruptions, if any, to power, water,
Okay, hopefully.
or telecommunications.
All right. Well, speaking of bahain, Sec, no, alam mo, tinatanong sa akin, bakit nga ba kung kailan
Rainy season.
tag-ulan at pasukan ng mga bata, dun pa sisimulan itong proyekto na ito?
That's a legitimate question.
Yeah.
Actually, dapat sisimulan to nung
March
nung summer.
yata. Yes,
Oo,
March.
kaya lang, ang problema, kailangan namin kasing maghanda para magbigay ng ways para sa mga motorista natin na gawing alternative to EDSA.
Okay.
No, and it took some time to kind of plan all of that out. For example, like I already announced the free toll on the Skyway, and Mr. Ramon Ang was so gracious and was so in the spirit of bayanihan, really said, let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's just make sure it's done properly. No?
And also Metro Pacific.
And also Metro Pacific followed suit, no? And which is really something to it's really something to see from our big conglomerates that they're willing to make that sacrifice, and even though it's going to affect their cash flows and for the next year and a half, 2 years, they were willing to do that, no, to help the government. So it took a bit of time, so kaya na push forward. So we're here. So.
But obviously, there are some negotiations
Yes.
as to what concessions will be made for
Correct.
them.
Correct.
What's on the table?
So one of the major things that we proposed, which they were very receptive to, was an extension in their concession term.
Okay.
So that's a major way to do it, because obviously the government doesn't want any rate hikes in the foreseeable future, apart from obviously the mandated rate hikes based on the contracts. Because of this, so that's one thing on the table. We're in the process of speaking to San Miguel and now Metro Pacific as well on other ways to give them relief,
Okay.
for
how
this very
long
generous
would-
offer.
How long would that extension, how long are we looking at?
We'll have to talk to them, and
Okay.
we'll have to do the
So
numbers.
nothing is
set yet.
Yet,
Nothing
okay.
set yet.
Another thing that I wanted to ask you is, kailan po ba sisimulan yung stretch ng Shaw to North Avenue? Kasi we were looking at the slides that were presented by the MMDA, and it seems like that particular stretch is missing from the plans?
I will find out. I
Okay.
don't want to give you an answer that I'm not sure of. So I will find out from MMDA.
Okay.
From MMDA, from DPWH. They are the lead agency for this, and MMDA and DOTr are helping them out. We're just
All right.
helping each other out to make this as less painful
Well, as possible.
for everybody.
Yes, obviously you are trying your best to prevent Carmageddon out there while the rebuild is underway. So let's shift a little bit to traffic management. You were already talking a little bit about the
routes,
Skyway
yeah.
3 as well as the Metro Pacific tollways. You were in Malacanang earlier, and you were
Yes.
also asked about architect June Palafox's suggestion to open roads inside
Subdivisions.
gated subdivisions.
I think this is something that MMDA will be very, very open to, but it needs obviously some study, no? And we have to find out which subdivisions, when, how long, etc., etc.
But isn't this something that was proposed
Yes.
back in 2016, and
It's
then they
always been
tried to
proposed.
do this in 2019
Yeah. Yes.
under the Duterte administration?
Yes.
And there was some success.
Yes, some success in some subdivisions.
So you still haven't identified which subdivisions you are going to be
I will find out
approaching.
from MMDA
Okay.
if they've identified already. To be honest, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right. We are going to take a short break. Zoom in. We'll be right back. You're watching Zoom In. I'm Menchu Macapagal, and still with us, Transportation Secretary Vince Dizon. So let's talk a little bit about traffic mitigation plans, one of which is the odd-even scheme. It coincides with the June 16 opening of classes, the dry run for this. Ano yun yung mga preparations ninyo to try and make it as we were
Yeah.
saying earlier, as painless as possible?
You know, that's one of the proposals of the MMDA. Like they've repeatedly said, it's a dry run,
Yes.
meaning on June 16 they'll try it out, but it will be more of like seeking the cooperation of the public, trying it out. There's no huli, there's no
For now.
there's no violations involved. We just want to see if it's effective or not. And
Yeah.
then MMDA has said that if it doesn't work, if it's not effective as they think it is, then they're not going to do it.
Okay,
They're
but
not
this
gonna
is
do it.
going to run for about a month,
Yes.
right? What is the criteria for them to say, okay, it's successful, or okay, parang it's a flop? Hindi na natin itutuloy.
I think first of all is one key metric will be, does it actually reduce the cars on the road?
Okay.
Because there are, on EDSA, there's some arguments that, maybe people will just buy more cars. and
Yes.
all of that. So that's the first metric I think that MMDA will use. The second metric is, do people actually, is it enforceable? Is it
Yeah.
implementable? Will it actually achieve the desired effect, or will it just cause confusion? No, so those are the questions I think that need to be answered. But we really gotta try it out and do it first. No, I think that's the plan of MMDA,
Okay.
and they'll try it out for a month. No penalties. No, wagang huli, wagang ticket. No, but We'll see if it works.
What will be the penalty once, you know,
Hindi ko pa
they
alam.
start? Wala
To
pa.
be honest, hindi ko
Wala
alam.
pang
Baka naman
sinasabi.
meron na, hindi ko lang alam. No? So
Okay.
we'll have to check with the MMDA. But yeah, I think what MMDA wants to see is really, is this going to help or
Yeah.
not? No.
Well, there were
On
some,
paper, they think it's going to help.
you know, there were a lot of reactions
Yes,
to the
I
odd-even
understand.
scheme, and they were saying may suggestions din, di ba, for possible changes.
Yes.
Like, for example, Senator J.V. Ejercito suggested having window hours.
Yes.
Is that something that's being looked into?
I think so. I think right now MMDA is looking at every suggestion and every possibility.
What do you think of that suggestion?
First of all, I really want to see.
Okay.
I really want to see if it will actually work or not. No, because, I mean, if it doesn't work and if it doesn't achieve the desired result, then why even do it in the first place? No, baka naman makagulo lang tayo. To me, for DOTr, what we're focused on are three things. Number one, providing that alternative route and making people, instead of passing EDSA, go up to the Skyway or go up to the SLEX NLEX connector, because that will clearly help in providing an alternative.
Yes.
But in order to do that is we have to incentivize it, and then the best way to incentivize it is, and I can see Skyway here right now, is to initially, you know, tell the motorist, hey, libre muna dito. So,
Okay.
pwede kayong dumaan. Kasi, yun ang disincentive eh. Kasi ayaw nilang gamitin kasi may bayad. Mahal eh.
Yes.
No? And in fact, actually, to be quite honest and personal about this, that actually affects my commute because I go to Pampanga every day, back and forth, and I pass the Skyway all the
Yes.
time. And I'm a paying customer of the Skyway. So that
You're going to be affected
I'm going to be
by it
affected
as well.
a lot by it, by free toll, because obviously that's going to be, traffic is going to be a problem
Yes.
up there, no, when the free toll kicks in.
Another thing that you're proposing is hopefully people will take public transportation instead of using
that's
their
the
cars.
second one.
So you mentioned that you're going to be adding 100 buses.
100 plus buses on the
Okay.
busway. So
When can we expect to see those buses
we've already added 50
Okay.
over the course of the last month. We're going to add maybe 100, 150 more. But we have to do this, you know, in phases. We have to look at the demand, because obviously we also want the bus operators and the bus companies to make money. No? Baka too much supply will obviously bring down their revenues, no, and their profits. No? But we have to do that slowly. As the volume increases, then we will add more. And then I also want to add more trains on the MRT. Because that has proven to be very effective.
And you're also extending operating hours?
We want to extend in the morning for maybe
Okay.
even just 30 minutes. That's what we're haggling now with Sumitomo, our operator.
Because their concern is the
Maintenance.
maintenance.
Maintenance is the issue.
Oo.
But the other thing that we've done, which I presented in Malacanang today in the briefing, was we've been working painstakingly to try to reduce pila time, queuing time, no, yung mga
Yeah.
pila natin, no, and this comes directly from the president.
And
where-
one of the things that you did to do that is to remove the X-ray
Yes.
machines. But
Yes.
isn't that
Security.
How are you ensuring yung
So,
security?
this
Tama
is-
na ba yung PCG? And
This
the
is why
K9?
we really took our time here. No, in fact, just to tell you the story, when I rode the MRT on Taft Avenue in early March, pumila ako doon, siguro rush hour yun. So pumila ako 30-40 minutes ang pila ko
Okay.
doon. No? So mahaba talaga. And, you know, hindi birong pumila ng 40 minutes, 30 minutes. No? Sometimes I heard it's even an hour or
Yeah.
more than an hour. So when I got to the station, I noticed the X-ray there. And, you know, of course, I went through it, et cetera, et cetera. I had a small bag with me, so I went through it. And then, on my way back, I was thinking, is there any other metro or subway that I've used anywhere in the world that had that?
Yeah.
And I could not think of one, no, in the world that actually had an X-ray like what you have in an airport. No, so that really gave me the idea of finding a way to eventually remove them, but make sure that the stations and the people are still secure.
Okay.
So we had talks with the Office of Transport Security, with the Coast Guard, with the PNP, with everybody, and said, okay, what are the ways by which we can, if we remove the X-ray, what can replace them and what can ensure
Okay.
that our people are safe. And that's where the ideas for the heavily armed
Yeah.
guards, which we see in other places, and here you're gonna see the canine sniffing dogs, no, that check big and they call them suspicious bags. No? Ito yung mga malaking bag na pwedeng
So,
paglagyan
ibig
ng
sabihin, wala nang mga individual bag checks with the mahiwagang stick?
Wala nang gano'n.
Wala nang
So, ang
ganon.
ginagawa ngayon, if you have a handbag, for
Okay.
example, you go straight. You just go through a
okay.
metal detector. So, we also have the metal detectors. No?
Okay.
So, you just go through the metal detectors. You're only checked if, obviously, there's something, no?
Yeah, if something sounds.
Dati kasi, everybody.
Yes.
Everybody. So, talagang nag-iimbudo sa
Okay.
X-ray. So, now, for the canines, like yon, no?
So, if you have big packages.
Big packages like ito,
Some-
not this one, but there's like a lady with like a big luggage. Yun,
Yeah.
ipapasniff yon.
Okay.
No, and ipapacheck, no. So,
Okay. So, another
So,
suggestion.
and we're still learning. We're still
Oo.
learning and we're still trying to improve. But what we've seen is that yung dating 45 minutes to 1 hour, ngayon 5 minutes na lang.
5 minutes na lang.
Oo.
So,
Minsan, matagal
malaking
yung
ginhawa.
10 minutes. Ang
Oo,
laki.
malaking ginhawa
I mean,
sa
we're
ating commuters.
practically saving our people an hour in the morning and an hour in the afternoon. So that's 2 hours every day. That's 2 hours with your family. That's 2 hours for productive work. That's a lot of time saved for our people.
Well, another option that the government was saying was taking a TNVS or maybe a
Yes.
ride-hailing service since they
Absolutely.
are exempted from the coding. Pero yung kinakatakot naman ng mga kababayan natin, baka naman yung mga magkaroon ng surge pricing all day, every day dahil nga sa traffic conditions. How are you...
Madali naman pong ma-regulate
Oo.
yun ng LTFRB. In fact, LTFRB is already in talks with Grab and the other TNVS operators. And we are trying to think of ways. For example, no, abroad, ang TNVS, may mga TNVS na malalaki
Yes.
na pwedeng mag-TNVS pool or Grab pool. Sorry, I don't mean to plug Grab, no, but parang ganon, no, na pwedeng
Magra-ride share talaga.
Magra-ride share, walong
Yes.
tao,
Oo.
instead of just 2 people or 1 person in a car. Diba? So, those are things we're exploring. Pero yung pag-regulate ng presyo, yan pwedeng gawin yan ng LTFRB.
Okay, now another way that you were thinking of maybe mitigating worsening traffic is talking to business leaders for possible work from home arrangements.
I actually came from a discussion.
Ano na yung mga discussions?
You know, Secretary Benny Gaguesma of the Department of Labor called for this meeting, no, with us, no, in the infrastructure sector, and you know, and kudos to the Department of Labor because they are really very active in trying to consult with the employers associations, with the labor groups on a possible, you know, work from home. I think there is a possibility for that. I don't want to preempt
Yes.
whatever final agreements there will be between the Labor Department and the employers. But that is something that I think we should all be open to.
Do you think that
it's
they'll
a
be
great
able?
idea.
Do you think they'll be able to reach a consensus in this meeting that they're having today?
I'm
or
not sure if it's this
it's
meeting,
going to be
but
a
I
series?
think if we put our heads together, which we're doing as we speak. In fact, I left them there. I had to leave earlier, but I think there's always a way to find, you know, middle ground and compromise. So we did that during COVID, no? And then not to say that this is worse than COVID, but you know, I think there are ways to get that done.
All right, and we will take a short break. Zoom in. We'll be right back. You're watching Zoom In. I'm Menchu Macapagal. And still with us, Transportation Secretary Vince Dizon. Now, Sec, sinabi mo nga kanina that the answer to traffic is not the EDSA rebuild,
No.
but really mass transit. So let's
Yes.
begin with the MRT 7.
Yes.
Okay, target for completion is 2026.
7. Well,
Na-push back na.
no, well, according to San Miguel Corporation, I think they can finish by the end of 2026.
Okay.
So, but maybe give it a few months, so maybe early 2027.
It will be fully operational by
until
2027.
Sacred Heart. So that's 12 stations.
Okay.
And you have 2 remaining stations. So it's practically done. We just have to find a way to fix the issues in San Jose del Monte. But
What
ang
are
laking
those
bagay nun.
issues?
Right away.
Right of
Right
way pa
away has
rin.
been but I think we're almost there. We're gonna get to that point already very soon. I
Very
think.
soon.
Very
Okay. So I believe yung target is isabay sa MRT 7 yung common station.
Yes.
So
Yan,
what is the latest update
okay,
there? Latest update on its bidding and construction.
Yeah. So we terminated the contract
Yes.
already. That's the first step, so we can move on. Now we're looking for the fastest way of getting a new contractor to finish it. And there are a couple of options. You can bid, but we can also do a PPP under the new PPP code. To be frank, that is my
That's
preference because I think it's not only faster, but it will also ensure that it's really going to be finished this time around,
Okay.
and it's going to be done well.
So who are you
Bec-
looking at?
There are a lot of possibilities. You know, any of those who are currently running the lines, the LRT, MRT lines are possibilities. But I still have to, have a conversation with them. No, but what's important, I think, is we've now moved on, and now we can. And our goal is to have this started, the construction of the restart of the
Yes.
construction of Common Station within the year, so that we can finish just in time for the opening of MRT 7.
Okay.
Because that has to be the goal.
Okay, well, one of the issues that the private contractor was saying that there were some issues with the payments.
Yes, yes.
So has that been resolved?
That's ongoing. That's
Ongoing.
ongoing. That's ongoing. And I'm confident that will get resolved very soon. Because
Okay.
It's really just a matter of saying who ose what and how much and all of that.
Okay.
And I've repeatedly said that if the government owes the contractor something for a delayed payment or a non-approval of an order or something like that, then the government will make sure that we pay. But if the contractor also has some obligations, then that's got to be
Balanced
reconciled.
out. All right. So, well, quickly on other big ticket projects, we have the Metro Manila subway partially operational by 2028.
Probably not partial, because when you say partially operational, you're talking about
Mas
people actually
masasakyan,
using.
yes.
No, but I don't think that's possible.
No,
to be
it's
to be
not.
quite honest, no.
What
but
is more realistic?
What we are trying to do right now is we are trying to finish at least 2 to 3 stations, so that they're completed and the trains can be tested already, running on underneath and into those 2 or 3 stations. That is our goal. But operational, whether partial or full, that will take at least, I think, until 2031, 2032.
2031. Okay. Now, the north to
It's-
south
it's a-
commuter
it's-
railway.
North-South Commuter Railway, I'm more optimistic because I think we can have commercial operations by 2027, by the end of 2027, from Valenzuela to Malolos, Bulacan.
Okay.
I think that can be commercially run by 2027.
Okay.
But I'm also cautiously optimistic that we will be able to reach Clark by early 2028.
Okay. Why were you saying that yung sa subway 2030,
Matagal kasi ang subway.
Oo.
Matagal, mabagal ang paghukay sa ilalim eh.
yung boring?
Yes, that's
Under
very
the
slow.
earth.
It's about 1 to 2 meters a day. So it's really, and you're talking about a very, very long highway, plus a very, very long subway line, and also there are still right-of-way problems
Okay.
to date. Now there are 5 major right-of-way issues. We've managed just in the last 3 months, we've managed to address 3 out of the 5, but there are still 2 major ones. Which we need to address. No,
Okay. Which is where?
particularly in Ortigas,
Ortigas.
in Metro Walk, the Metro Walk area, which is a major station, and then another part in towards BGC.
All right. There's a lot of problems in the transportation sector.
Yes.
One of which is the Jeepney modernization. In May, you reopened the consolidation again for non-compliant drivers. So,
Yes.
have you identified until when it will
Not
run?
yet. Not yet. Because what we're
Tuloy-tuloy lang.
Yes, tuloy-tuloy lang kasi I think what we've discovered in a through a very in-depth and really consultative process with the stakeholders and with everybody, including the banks, by the way, that have loaned upwards of 10 billion pesos for some of the groups
Drivers
to buy these modern vehicles.
Jeepneys.
Is that there are a lot of problems,
Okay.
especially in terms of the economic viability of the entire program. And as a result, there are a lot of issues with the repayment of the loans to the government banks that loan the money. And that to me is a major problem, and it's a major cause for some pause. No? And we presented this to the president, and the president fully understands the situation.
Okay.
And he's been fully appraised. And because of that, I think we need to reopen because I think it's unfair. No, na nagsara tayo last year, na ang dami naman palang problema ng programa. So kawawa naman yung mga iba nating mga operator na essentially pinatay ng gobyerno yung hanap buhay nila. No? So we are under a very strict set of guidelines, reopening, but there's some restrictions and there's
Okay.
some limitations.
Like?
For example, if there is a route where there is already a consolidated co-op or a corporation that's
Okay.
already running it and is already at 60%, we cannot allow a group
new-
that has not consolidated or other jeepneys who have not gone into the modernization program to ply that route.
Okay.
Kasi para mo namang pinatay yung
Yeah, existing.
yung nandun na,
Nauna.
no? And that will make it even more unviable. No? So those types of things. No? So the LTFRB and LTO are presently just finalizing the guidelines.
Okay.
But we need to allow, while we fix the program, the problems of the program, we need to allow those that were nasarahan
Okay.
to find a way to
So, tapos,
use.
one
Subject, of course, to roadworthiness.
To
no?
roadworthiness.
That's the most important. No?
So, ibig sabihin, they can still use their existing
If they're
jeepneys
roadworthy.
If they're
Meaning
roadworthy.
if they don't, if their brakes are okay, their engines
Okay.
are okay, they don't belch
All right.
into the atmosphere, into the air, then
Then okay. But tapos na ba ang rationalization ng mga ruta?
hindi pa.
Hindi pa
20% pa lang.
Why is it
Nationwide.
taking so long?
Maraming rason eh. But a lot of the reasons are because the process involves a lot of coordination between the LTFRB, the LGU. So it just really took so long.
And one of the problems, according to our friends from the jeepney industry, is yung nagpapalit every 3 years ang
Ang mga
leadership ng
Tama po yan.
ng local governments.
Yes.
Sila ang nagre-rationalize.
Tama po yan. Kaya nga isa po sa mga recommendations namin ibalik na nga sa LTFRB, pero with the proper consultation and coordination with the LGUs. Hindi yung LGU na ang gagawa. Everything. No? So, kasi nga, like you said, na nagpapalit, nagbabago. And that was one of the problems. So we're
Yeah.
trying to address all of these.
Okay.
It's like this knot that you gotta
Try to
untangle.
untie it. Okay. Well, the president actually requested courtesy resignations from cabinet officials, and you were one of the first to submit, di ba? Maraming nagsasabi that you should be retained because of you've been very visible and coming up with so many solutions to problems like on the fly. In your short stint, marami nang na-identify na projects na kailangan tapusin, but the reality is that you are under review.
Yes.
So how can you ensure that regardless of whoever sits in the DOTr, magko-continue yung mga projects
Yeah.
na nasimulan mo na?
Alam nyo, yung continuity, yan naman ho ang unang-unang sinabi ni Pangulong Bongbong Marcos, no? That the projects, especially those involving infrastructure development, will continue. And I think we have to give the president all the credit for that, no? Despite any politics, any issues tuloy-tuloy ang mga projects. No? And I think it will continue regardless of who is in my chair. No? But the courtesy resignations, I think, was the president's message, not just to us in government, but to everyone, to every Filipino, that we have to really realign our priorities away from politics to the people.
Okay.
And that was his message to us a couple of weeks ago. And I think he sends a strong message to every worker in government that, hey, you've got to focus on the people. And I think putting people, under review really keeps everybody on their toes, no? And make sure that we have to continue working. We have to work hard because, as the president said repeatedly, that we have to address immediate day-to-day concerns of people because these are things that matter. The big projects matter, but we cannot lose sight of the small things that matter on a daily basis for our people.
Well, so far with what you have done as DOTr chief, is it safe to say that you would pass the performance review?
I don't want to.
Would you be shocked if you didn't?
I'm in no position to comment on that. Menchu, I've been working in government for quite a while, in and out of government, past more than 2 decades. And, if you're in government, you're in, you're out, you just have to roll with it. And then my attitude always is we just make the most out of our time in government because it's not going to last. It's not going to last. But the time you're there, you're asked to do something, just do it fast and do it well.
And on that note, thank you very much, Transportation Secretary Vince Dizon, for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you, Menchu. Thank you so much.
And we will see you next time as we continue to zoom in on news and narratives that matter. I'm Menchu Macapagal.